I've become more of a team player, I said, keeping my voice calm, though my fingers dug into my palm under the table. Across from me sat my supervisor, Dana Whitmore. In her sleek office with a view of downtown Bellevue, Dana, in her mid-50s, wore a blazer that didn't quite fit and a smile that seemed rehearsed. She leaned back in her chair, her voice sweet like syrup. "Lena, you're excellent. But Casey, she's got personality. People enjoy her presence. She's just easier to be around. It's easier, not better, not more qualified, just easier." I was 41 now. I'd joined Rivergate Solutions at 35 after leaving my teaching career behind and diving into the business world with full force. 6 years of late-night deadlines, emergency presentations, and client accounts others had given up on, all mine. I had doubled our central regional growth, created an entirely new training program, and saved the company nearly $2 million in waste. But Casey, with her coffee cup photos and motivational quotes online, was the one being promoted. I watched Dana pretend to organize her desk, clearly waiting for me to thank her or act gracious. Instead, I calmly placed a neat white envelope in front of her. "I appreciate your input," I said with a soft smile. "This is my resignation effective 2 weeks from now." Dana's face faltered. "Lena, wait, let's talk this through." "No need," I said gently. "You made your choice, just staying focused on outcomes." But she didn't. Realize what no one at Rivergate knew was that while Casey had been busy pleasing people, I'd been building something real. My own leadership coaching firm, quietly launched, fully legal, and turning a profit since last quarter. This wasn't a loss. I had simply outgrown this space. If this story feels like your own, follow along, because Lena's next step isn't a breakdown, it's a breakthrough. One that will make Dana's decision look like the mistake it truly was. As I walked out of that glass office, something shifted in the energy on the 17th floor. Heads turned, whispers started. And I knew Casey was already picking out a new quote for my old office wall. But I stayed calm, walked back to my desk like it was just any other Monday. Because inside that resignation letter was a second page. And that page would make Dana nearly spill her vanilla cold brew. Over the next 2 weeks, Casey floated around like she was on a stage, latte in hand, loving the attention. On the 4th day, she leaned over the edge of my cubicle, her lips curling. Into a half smile, "Lena, I hope you're not too upset," she said. "I know that role meant a lot to you." I glanced up briefly while finishing a backup of 3 years' worth of performance data. Training docs and workflow improvements. Not to steal, but to log every success I led. "Not upset at all, Casey," I replied with a cool smile. "You'll do great." She walked away proud. But what she didn't know was those results came from a system I had created, an adaptive team performance platform I built during my offers without company tools. And just last week, my patent got approved. That second page in my resignation. It outlined how my software had saved millions and boosted retention. And it was all tied to me. A week later, I got an email from Brian Chang, CEO of Apex Insight, our biggest competitor. Over coffee, he offered more than a job. He offered partnership, ownership, and a say in the future. "We've been looking for someone like you," he said. "Someone who understands that real success comes from results, not appearances." As I signed the agreement, I felt something click inside me. It wasn't about applause. It was about respect, the kind earned through real value. On my final day at Rivergate, right as I returned my ID badge, Dana called me in one last time. Her usual calm was gone. "Lena," she said, voice shaking, holding up the printout from my resignation letter, "we need to talk about this report." "Why didn't you tell us about this software?" I sat across from her, smoothing the edge of my navy jacket. "I did," I replied. "3 times you turned it down," said team chemistry was more important. Her eyes scanned the document again. Dana's face lost its color as she stared at the numbers: reduced costs, smart automation, project predictions, and this is ... protected by law. Shay asked, her voice low. I nodded. Filed it last autumn. It's been officially granted. And I've joined as an equity partner at RK Tech Systems. They're already preparing to roll it out across the entire firm. Dana let out a sharp breath. RK? Lena? No, you can't. They're our biggest rival in the central region. What about your loyalty? I tilted my head slightly. Loyalty? You mean like choosing charm over contributions? Or ignoring my ideas because I wasn't throwing after-work socials? She opened her mouth, but I didn't pause. If your focus had been results instead of office gossip, we wouldn't be in this position. We'll match their offer, Senior VP. Just stay. It was never about titles, I said quietly. It was always about being respected. As I walked out, I heard her scrambling to make phone calls. But the damage was already done. If you believe real respect comes from results, not begging, stick around. Lena's next chapter proves that. Being overlooked isn't the end, it's the beginning of something much bigger. That patent. It was mine. The partnership deal. Already signed, and Casey. Well, she was about to learn that looking good isn't enough. Real skill is what keeps the door open. Later that evening, while packing up my last box, I spotted a yellow sticky. Note on my monitor, wish you all the best. Let's stay in touch, Casey. I smiled slightly, crumpled it, and tossed it in the bin. She'd hear my name again. So would the entire industry. My first day at RK Tech felt like walking into another world. No bland beige walls or passive-aggressive messages. My new space overlooked Lake Serenity, tall glass windows, clean design, and a nameplate that read, Lena Davis's partner, Innovation and Systems Strategy. But it wasn't just about the view, it was the respect. Brian Chang, the CEO, called. A company-wide meeting to introduce me not just as an employee, but as a leader. He didn't give a usual welcome speech. He told my story. Spoke about the platform I built, the results it had delivered, and the future it could shape. Lena isn't just filling a position, Brian said. She's leading a transformation. Her work is tested, powerful, and it's just the beginning. Rivergate. I had been invisible. At RK Tech, I was the foundation. And then 3 months in, everything shifted again. During a workshop, my phone buzzed, a message from Tariq Ahmed, one of the few sharp minds still at Rivergate. Check the headlines. Something big just broke. I slipped into my office and opened the news. Rivergate Solutions loses 30% of clients. After Q2 tech collapse, the article was harsh. Missed goals, delayed launches, major accounts gone. The report described their systems as broken, outdated, and built on undocumented frameworks. But one quote stood out. They once managed high-level tech for us. Now they can't even deliver basic work. It's like the backbone of their team just vanished. Thomas Kwan, CEO of Synercore Industries I, smirked. That backbone? It was me, the system they ignored. The one I had developed, supported, had handed off to someone who didn't even understand how to keep it alive. My phone buzzed again. Tariq, Casey's losing it in the kitchen. Total breakdown. I leaned back in my chair, sunlight reflecting. Off the lake into my office, I didn't need revenge. I had results. If you've ever been overlooked, passed up, or underestimated, keep watching. Lena's rise is just getting started. And what's coming next? It'll shake the entire business world. Casey had spent years copying others, spitting out buzzwords, and smiling her way into spaces she didn't earn. But now the truth was catching up, and Dana, who bet everything on image instead of impact, was watching it fall apart. Meanwhile, I had moved on to bigger things. At RK Tech, my system wasn't just being used, it was changing the game. Timelines had dropped by over half. Client satisfaction was at a record high. Efficiency reports looked better than ever. The charts had been approved. Brian had already greenlit the full rollout across departments, and 3 Fortune 100 firms were in talks to license my system. They had misjudged me, and now they were trying to catch up. It was a crisp Thursday morning, 6 months since I had left Rivergate Solutions. As I walked into my RK Tech office, I spotted Brian Chang by my desk, holding a folded copy of the Bellevue Business Journal. "Seen this yet?" Kay asked, lifting the paper. The front page headline screamed, "Rivergate faces emergency overhaul after mass resignations and system breakdown." I took the paper and nodded. I saw it. Seems like they're finally admitting how badly they treated their team. Brian sighed. "They tried recreating your platform from scratch, but they never understood the core of it." "They thought it was just lines of code," I replied. "But the real value was in the structure, the thinking behind it." Brian gave me a slow, knowing smile, the kind that comes only when the long game pays off. "That's why the board voted unanimously," he said. "Starting next week, you'll be our new Executive Vice President of Strategic Innovation. You didn't just upgrade our systems, you changed our vision." A quiet pride warmed me. This is what true appreciation feels like. Not applause for being likable, but acknowledgement for building something that lasts. That evening, the Bellevue skyline turned amber under the setting sun. An unexpected email appeared in my inbox. From Dana Whitmore's subject, "Apologies," she wrote. "I'm guessing you've heard what's happening at Rivergate. I need to say I was wrong. Dismissing your work was the worst decision of my career. The board now sees what you created and what we let slip away. I've stepped down. Casey resigned last month. Turns out charm doesn't deliver results. I know it's late, but I wanted you to hear this from me. You were right. I wish I had realized it earlier." Dan, I read it twice. There was a time when a message like that would have meant the world to me. A time when delayed respect might teeve, healed old bruises, but that time was gone, behind me. The sun caught the edge of the glass frame that held my patent certificate. On the shelf, a plaque from our highest performing quarter gleamed beside a fresh issue of Forbes. Open to an article naming me among the top 10 women changing the face of tech. Dana's message wasn't a reckoning. It was background noise now. I clicked reply and typed, "Thank you for your message. You're right. Results do matter. I wish you well in whatever comes next." I hit send. Then I looked around my office. Every part of it a reflection of the hard-earned respect I now stood in. Nothing was handed to me. Nothing was borrowed. I had built it. The next morning, I gathered the full team. The room filled quickly. Analysts, engineers, designers, not one of them was there just to be seen. They were there because they cared. As everyone settled, I stood in front of them. "Before we dive into our next big rollout," I said, "I want to share a quick story, not about metrics or platforms, but about value, recognizing it in yourself and in others, to never letting someone else decide what you're worth." Oh. They leaned in, not just to my words, but to the conviction behind them. This company, our company, wasn't built on image or noise. It was built on character, on clarity, on the kind of quiet confidence that drives real change. Later that evening, as I drove past Rivergate's old building, I slowed at a red light. Their once flashy logo looked worn now, dulled by time and consequence. A for-lease sign blinked in a corner window. Downsizing again. But I didn't feel smug. I felt thankful. Thankful they underestimated me. Thankful they let me go. Because that's what set me free to create something better sometimes. The biggest blessings show up wearing rejection. And sometimes being too focused on results is the very thing that makes you unstoppable. The most powerful way to answer being underestimated is to build something so strong, so undeniable that no one can ignore it. My phone buzzed. A message from Tariq lit up the screen. "Rivergate's board wants to talk. They're asking if you'd ever consider coming back as CEO." I stared at it for a moment. Then I typed slowly, "Thanks for letting me know, Tariq, but I'm exactly where I belong." Because real success isn't about going back to prove someone wrong. It's about standing tall and proving yourself right. About holding on to your worth, especially when others overlook it. It's about rising, not for approval, but with purpose and for me. That's when the real story began. As I pulled into the driveway of my Hillview Heights townhouse, my thoughts drifted. I thought of every Lena out there, quiet professionals doing excellent work, constantly ignored because they don't play loud or play along. Maybe this story, the one I lived, will reach just one of them. Maybe it will remind them, you don't need permission to build something extraordinary. You just need belief your own. Sometimes rejection isn't a wall. It's a signpost pointing you in a better direction. You take their silence, you take the not yet and the you're too much, and you turn it into movement, into solutions, into impact they never saw coming. That night, in my home office surrounded by global contracts and project dashboards, I felt something quiet and deep peace. Above my desk, framed in matte black, hung a quote Dana once threw at me like it was criticism. You're too results-driven. She wasn't wrong. That focus. It's what led me here, to leadership, to clarity, to building something lasting. On my own terms. If you've made it this far, thank you. This story wasn't just mine. It's for every person who's ever been told they're too serious, too intense, or somehow still not enough just because they weren't loud or charming enough for the room. If you saw your reflection in any part of this story, drop a comment below. I want to hear your journey because I've been there, working hard, getting results, and still being overlooked. You're not invisible. You're not imagining it. And no, you're not asking too much just because you want to be respected. If this story spoke to you, please consider subscribing. Not just to follow what comes next, but to join a community that values strength without noise, success without applause, and rising without spotlight. We're building something real here for people like you. And if I can offer one piece of truth, it's this. Stop waiting for someone else to see your worth. Stop holding yourself back to keep others comfortable. Don't let their doubt decide your future. Use it. Turn their silence into space to create, to build, to lead. Keep showing up. Keep going. Because one day, the same people who dismissed you will wish they hadn't, but by then, you'll already be far ahead, standing in a life you've built yourself. This is your reminder. This is your moment. You don't need to go back. You only need to rise.